So look at the Sichos on Toldot. So Eila Toldos Yitzchak. Now there's a klal that Eila without the vav is possible, rejects what came before, and Ve'ela is that it's a continuation of what came before. Now at the end of Parshas Chayei Sarah, we discuss the life of Yishmael as he goes and marries his wives. So Ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak, it says in the Midrash that Ve'ela Moisef, it adds to what we had before. So on what it says above, that are the Bnei Yishmael, and what was it? That was Esav and Banav. That they were the children of Yitzchak. So Ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak, the Iker is talking about Esav. That just like we had before, they had the Yishmael side of Avraham. So to hear Ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak is that we have that Esav is the Iker of Yitzchak. But Ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak, the Kavana is to Esav, that was the Rasha, like the Bnei Yishmael, just like the Bnei Yishmael were Rasha, so to Esav was. And therefore it says, Toldos Yitzchak Chaser. But it didn't say that this Dalid has a Cholem, so Toldos, but without the Vav in Toldos there. So it's Chaser because it takes out Yaakov Miklal HaRishayim. Because Ve'ele is talking about the Esav, which is the Rishayim of Yitzchak, and therefore Yaakov is not involved, he's not included in that, and therefore Toldos is Chaser, and it's the Ve'ele because it's continuation from Yishmael. We have to understand, because of the Midrash, it's talking about Ve'ela Toldos, Ve'esav. It comes out that the Iker in the Pasuk is, according to the Midrash, is not Yaakov, but Esav, and if so, it's a wonder. How do we see in the Parsha that it's more Esav than Yaakov? How do we see in the Parsha that the emphasis is that the Eila Toldos Esav, Eldest Toldos Yitzchak is Esav? Where do we see that in the Parsha and the Iker? How is it possible to say the Eila Toldos Yitzchak, that's Esav, and it's not Yaakov? How can you say that these are the Toldos of Yitzchak when we're talking about Esav? To understand this, we have to say in a general manner that the point of the Parsha of Toldos is that the matters of Yitzchak and his service. So how does Yitzchak serve? That his Toldos, that the things that come out of Yitzchak, his walking to Gerer and the digging of the bore and the birchos of Yitzchak. So we kind of have three ideas coming out in Parsha Toldos, and that is he goes to Gerer, that he has the children, he goes to Gerer, he digs the bores, he digs the pits, and then he blesses his children. So 4 ideas. And since that the Chiddush in the Avdos of Yitzchak is going to the Avdos of Avraham, so how does the work of Yitzchak go connect the work of Avraham? Because we've seen so far in the Torah the work of Avraham. So what is the work of Yitzchak in the Parshas, in the previous Parshas? It comes out with this, that it is the Yichus, that the connection of the Ruchni of Esav was different to the Yichus of Avraham to Yishmael. So that the Avraham had a connection to Yishmael, and Yitzchak had a connection to Esav, but there's a difference between the two connections based on their avoda, based on their service of God, and therefore the Parshas opens up with Ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak. That's Esav, because we see that how the avoda of Yitzchak comes out in Esav, as to say that there in the Parsha and the point of the Toldos. And the Toldos b'mashmos shel avodas Yitzchak, that it also comes out in the Toldos and in the outgrowth, and what comes out in the avoda of Yitzchak, his acts and these type of things, that it is nicker, it is recognized in the matter of Eila Toldos ze Esav. So through the connection between Yitzchak and Esav, we can see the avoda of Yitzchak, and especially in connection to how we have the avoda of Avraham between Yishmael. And the separation between the connection of Yishmael to Avraham and between the connection of Esav to Yitzchak, there are 2 flips. There are 2 complete opposite ideas. From one idea, that Yishmael was closer in Ruchnius to Avraham, because we see that Esav than it was from Esav to Yitzchak, because Yishmael was Chozer b'teshuvah in the life of Avraham. So while Avraham was still alive, Yishmael was he did teshuvah and he was a tzaddik. And it appears that was because of the way that Avraham was dealing with Yishmael, that the hashpah and the influence of Avraham on Yishmael created Yishmael to be a tzaddik. He did teshuvah, even though he had the ways of evil, as Sarah kicked him out of the house. He was chozer b'teshuvah, and that was because of Avraham. But on Esav, we don't see that he was Chayzer b'Tshuva. We don't see he did Tshuva. So therefore, that the hashpah and the influence of Yitzchak on Esav, it never brought him back to Tshuva. But the Hepech, according to the explanation of Chazal, that it is mentioned in the Pirshus of Rashi, as Rashi explains it, that he was Ikov la'acher Moso, that after the death of Yitzchak, Esav was stopping the burial of Yitzchak through Yaakov in the Mars HaMakpelah. So Yaakov came to try to bury Yitzchak, and Esav was causing problems until one of his children cut off his head, and then his head rolled into the grave of Yitzchak. On the other point, we see Avraham was Yotze Mimenu Yishmael, so it came out. So Nifrad, the idea of Yotze is separate. It's separate from Yishmael. And Yishmael, he wasn't in the Geder, or in the idea, or in the framework of being a Jew. And therefore, he didn't Yoyesh Avraham. He had no connection to Avraham. He had no nachla or inheritance from Avraham. Because even though that he was Chayzer b'Tshuva, as it says, you will not inherit the son, the Ben Ha'ama Hazot. So Yishmael is referred to like a slave servant or a servant, and he's nothing to do with Yerusha. He's nothing to do with inheritance, because he's not coming from like a direct descendant of Avraham. There seems to be a disconnection there. In Yitzchak, but Yitzchak, he was the direct descendant, and therefore there was a flow from Avraham into Yitzchak. That flow is blocked when it comes to Yishmael. So against this, with Esav, because even though that he was Yotze and he was Nifrad from Yitzchak, because Yitzchak Yotze Mimenu came out from him, Esav. So again, there's an idea of being separate. With all this, he remained in the level of Yisrael. Again, he may not be a Yisrael Tzaddik, he may be a Yisrael Mumar, but he's still in the Geder, he's still in the idea of being the Zera Yisrael. And he is a Yerush, and it says that there is the flow from Yitzchak to Esav, and that he is Shaykh, and he's relevant to having a Yerusha and an inheritance. As it says, that Yerusha le'Esav natati. So this is a pasuk in Devarim, that when the Jews are coming up to Har Seir, God tells Moses to bring them around Har Seir, because it was a Yerusha given to Esav of Har Seir, and that's Devarim 2:5, and you can also see the Rashi there. So Esav is in the Geder, he's in the Shayach, he's in the idea of getting Yerusha. But Pashtus, it gives over to explain the Asiba Lekach. Look, what is this? That Yishmael was not in the idea of inheritance, because he was a Ben Amma, so he was shaykh to Avdus, he was shaykh to servant. Therefore, as it is emphasized in the pasuk, Lo Yerosh Ben Amma Hazos Im Beni. So he says so Sarah says that the Ben Ha'ama, that the servant, this will not inherit with my son. So you have one as a son and one as a servant. But it is not thusly with Esav, because Esav was also the son of Rivka. So therefore we didn't have that separation between the father with the wife and the father with the servant. So what they're both coming from the wife, and therefore Esav and Yaakov are both have that flow from Yitzchak that Yishmael does not have from Abraham. However, from this, that it is separate from Bnei Yaakov, Bnei Shevchos. And all this, it says on Yaakov, that mitzvah shlema. So Yaakov married maidservants, and yet still there is a Yerusha coming from Yaakov, coming down into his children who came from the servants, which we don't have with Abraham to Yishmael. So Dan is coming from a maidservant, but yet there's still a direct descendant from a Yerusha and a flow from Yaakov going to Dan, even though he's the Bnei Shevchos, because his bed was complete, and he wasn't like Avraham. And Yitzchak, that came out from them Yishmael and Esav, as it's understood that according to before Matan Torah, they were also Ben Ha'ama, Lios Yoirish, that they would be inheriting. So here, by Yaakov came out from him not like Avraham and Yitzchak, that through the slave women came out the Yerusha, and came out a level that was not like Avraham and Yitzchak. That because before Matan Torah, so therefore, since it's Matan Torah, even though that they're Bnei Shevchos, and Ben Ha'ama, they're able to be a Yerush, is able to have that flow from Yaakov to the children. But this is all the difference between the avoda of Avraham, the avoda of Yitzchak, and the avoda of Yaakov, that comes out with different toldos, that comes out with different expressions in the world. So we go back, that the kashya that we had in its place. Well, what is the difference between Yishmael between Esav? That because of him, it was considered Esav like a Jew and not Yishmael, even though it was there was Davka Yishmael and not Esav that was Chozer but Shuva. So I would think that it would be Yishmael would be closer. And this has to be Chiach, proven that the kesher between Esav and Yitzchak is deeper than the kesher between Yishmael and Avraham. And this connection and this bond between them, it is not connected to being Chozer B'T Shuva. So therefore we see that Esav was closer to Yitzchak, even though he's a Rasha the whole time. He's a Rasha and he didn't do Chozer B'T Shuva. He still has that close connection. So what is the avoda of Yitzchak that's creating a connection that kind of goes beyond Maisim, goes beyond deeds, goes beyond what you're doing? Whereas in Avraham, it's all about what you're doing, but even when you're doing the good stuff, you still don't have that connection. So Gimel. On the connection, the specific connection between Esav and Yitzchak, there's a remez and a hint also in what Chazal say, that in the burial of the head of Esav was in the cheko shel Yitzchak. It was in the bosom. It was in the body of Esav. So again, the story is that the head was chopped off and it rolled into the grave of Esav, of Yitzchak. So Yitzchak was buried with Esav's head. And this is l'chayra, it's extremely bizarre that this happened, because the halacha is that you don't bury the Rasha by the tzaddik. And we also see this by Sarah, that the Bnei Chet said, you can just bury you can bury Sarah amongst us. Just anyone will give him their plot land for you. And Avraham is like, no, I need my own burial plot. So that Sarah couldn't just be buried amongst the children of Chet. She had to have her own place. So that the tzaddik is not buried with the Rasha. And we even have this story in Nevi'im that when they threw onto the grave of Elisha, the body of a Navi Sheker. So there was a dead body of a Navi Sheker thrown onto the kever, the grave of Elisha the prophet. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a specific nace of Mechias HaMesim, and that the Navi Sheker, the false prophet, he got up and into life. He got brought back to life in order to prevent that the burial of this Rasha would be next to Elisha. So therefore, how could it be, therefore, that the head of Esav will be buried with the body of Yitzchak? And specifically, that Chazal says in the Atzma Magdishim that is the head of Esav. So specifically the head of Esav, not just that the Rasha is buried with him, but the head of Esav is specifically buried with. And the explanation of this is that the Risha of Esav, it was only through his guf. So you had the head and the body, and it was only in the body that the reshus of Esav came out. But from the side of the resha, from his head, kasha, the resha was cut off from the body, then Ein hu Rasha. So the head of Esav didn't have a din of Rasha. Therefore, once the head is disconnected from the guf, the head could go into the grave, because the head is not a Rasha. Just the guf was, so the guf, the body of Esav couldn't be buried with Yitzchak, but the head could. The hepech, and the opposite, then you have a kesher to Yitzchak, and therefore he is remain as the head with the body of Yitzchak. So we skip the brackets onto Dalet. And that is the extra of Esav on Al Pnei Yishmael. This is how we have Esav is different and has a different connection than Yishmael does. Because also by Yishmael and also by Esav, you have remaining in them the power of the Av, the Koyach HaAv, that they are the Toldot of Avraham and Yitzchak. Therefore you'll find the Koyach of Avraham in Yishmael, and you have the Koyach of Yitzchak in Esav. That they are come out and they're separate from them, even though that they're separate from them, you still have the koch of them in there. So you have, again, the child is not the father, but the power or the abilities or the potential of the father comes out in the son. And it is specifically, since the tzaddikim are similar to their creator, and therefore they have a kedusha, a eternal kedusha in the deeds of their hands. So since the avos are connected to God, therefore everything which they do has that godliness in it, and therefore everything they all they're told us. What is a Toldot? Toldot is that what comes out of what you're doing. Therefore, whatever comes out of the avos has that kedusha that's in it. And alas kamazkama told to say him, and how much more so, not just in the ma'aseh yedayim, but in their Toldot, what actually comes out of their body that is coming from their physical creation, coming from them, and the seed is coming from the moach and comes out from the connection between the man and the wife. How much more so than just you're making something. So, for example, if Moshe made the temple, you couldn't destroy it, because that's the ma'aseh yedayim. It's the act of the hand of the tzaddik, and therefore it has that godliness in it. So, how much more so? It's not what the hands are making, but it's actually what's coming from the body. The body itself is created, and it is the body. So, it's to say that by them, when they look at the kedusha of Avraham and Yitzchak, but because they are the actions and they have the flow from out of the tachum of the kedusha, and the separation between them is often that it is can have the expression by them in the influence of the fathers, because by Yishmael it was in a manner that they will bring him to the chazor b'tshuva. So Abraham's interaction with Yishmael will bring him to Teshuvah, but from the second part, even after the Teshuvah, he remains in the Chayser Kesher Avram. He's still lacking that connection to Avraham, where he can't be a Yerush, and there's still something blocking that flow from Avraham, and he can't inherit him. But against this, you have Esav, that even though that from his guf that he is lower than Yishmael, therefore he wasn't Chayser but Teshuvah. And all this because of his head, because that he was cut off from the guf, he was closer to the body of Yitzchak. So through this you will find it's possible an example of the halacha lahavdil ben hekesher Yishmael Avraham. So the difference of the connection between Yishmael and Avraham and the connection between Esav and Yitzchak in two ways of the way that you see in the shlichus of the avos. And that the first geder and the first area which we see this is that the shliach is that the metzius bifnei atzmos. There's a maklokas, and how do you understand the shliach? The shliach shalavim kamo. So how does this work? So either the mishaleach sends the shliach. So the mishaleach is the one who's sending, and the shliach is the one that's doing the shliach. So either the mishaleach sends the shaliach, and the shaliach becomes the mishaleach, or it's like the mishaleach gives his arm to the shaliach, and the shaliach does it with the mishaleach's arm. So there's comes nafkaminas in halacha how this plays out. Even though that the shaliach is somebody completely different to the one that's sending him, but the din Torah, it is how that through by appointing the shaliach, then the deeds go back to the Mishaleach, so that the Mishaleach didn't do the deed, but the deed goes back to him. There's another way to explain it, is that the Metzias of the Shaleach he becomes mamish just like the Mishaleach, the guy who sent him. He is the Mishaleach. It's not that the deed that the Shaleach does becomes the Mishaleach's, but it's that the Shaleach himself is the Mishaleach, and that we come through this, through his deeds, then they become the deeds of the Mishaleach. So Vav. So the separation between the Toldot of Avraham and Yitzchak, it comes out in the separation between the ways of the avoda of Avraham and Yitzchak as later on. So we'll see now here the avoda of Avraham and Yitzchak, and that one of the separations between the distinctions between the avodas of Avraham and Yitzchak is that the avodas of Avraham is from melamala lamata. That means going from the top down. So there's a revelation and bringing down of godliness below. And that the service of Yitzchak is from mimata lamala, going from the down up. And therefore, when you're going from down up, you have this clarity and this refinement of the world, and then you bring up the world above. So they have ideas of the job of a Jew is to raise up the physicality. So whether that's true or not, that's the avoda of mimata lamala, that you take what's down here and you bring it up. And there's a separate avoda called milamala lamata, which is where you bring God down, and that you go to the place in which the person is. You don't raise it up, but you bring God down, and you like shine a light into the darkness. as opposed to raising the darkness into the light. And that the separation between the differences between this will be revealed in the Pashtus, in their avoda. That Avraham Avinu was involved with the bringing to the recognition and the yediyah of God, also in the Brias Yeredus Beyoter. So he is dealing with revelation of God to parts of creation that are extremely low, and even the Arabs, that they are bowing down to the dust of their feet. And Avraham goes to these people, they're basically avoda zara, and Avraham goes to them and reveals God in their world. But Yitzchak, what's his avoda? He's working with digging wells. What is the idea of digging wells? That's the removal of the dust of the land, and then stones and the wood that are covering over the Mayim Chayim. So you have the flowing water, and it's right there, and you look at the ground, and all you see is desert and parched land. And when you remove, and this is the birur, and this is the clarification, one of the avodas of man is to do the clarification of birur in this world, and you take away, how do you do birur in this world? That you take away the things that cover up, and that everywhere you look, there is water flowing, water being the Torah, water being God, water being the nitzusis of God, the creation of God that vivifies, the word of God that vivifies everything in the world, that's giving life to everything. And that word, you can find it everywhere, but what you have to do is remove what's covering it up. And when you remove what's covering it up, then you bring, that thing itself becomes holy. It's that you reveal the water that's in the desert, you reveal the holiness that's in the object. But you need to do that by removing. You don't just shine the light on it, but you bring the light that's in it out. So the Mayim Chayim that was always there, that was in the ground. So therefore the work of Yitzchak is to uncover that, and he was digging wells and removing and bringing the water to the surface. So this avoda in the panemius, in the insides, it is a purification of the things that are created, which is the idea of below, from the artzata v'gasusov. So things that are the gasus, the unrefined, until you get a revelation in it, the flow and the life blood of godliness. And because all of these two ways, above, the top down and the bottom up, there's a benefit to each one of them that the other one doesn't have. Because through coming down milamala lamata, so this idea of Avraham, this idea of chesed, this idea of revealing God to the low, so therefore you influence and you give light below from above. So again, it's like a torch. You're in the dark, you have the torch, now you've got the light in the dark place. But you don't change the essence of what you're shining the light onto. So when you come and you give a nice vort to somebody, and he's like, "Wow, that's amazing," he didn't change. He just got pleasure right there and then. But once you leave, then the guy hasn't changed at all. So you're shining a light in a dark corner. Turn the torch off, and now there's no light there anymore. This is an idea of Chagas. So if you go to Uman Rosh Hashanah, there'll be thousands, tens of thousands of people there, and you'll have an amazing experience. But if you then go to a minyan somewhere in the backwaters and have a Rosh Hashanah experience, then you won't have it, because the whole reason that you enjoyed yourself was because of the situation which you were in, that somebody else was shining a light on you, but you didn't change. So since you didn't change, you can't take it with you, and there's no real change in the person. So as soon as the Arab goes to Avraham, well, Avraham is there. He has a hakara, and he has a revelation of God, and he thanks God. And as soon as he leaves, so then what's he doing once he's outside of Avraham? And it says that once Avraham died, then all the thousands of people which he made, and they were the followers of Avraham, they all dissipated. They all went away. They were not left. Because it's all coming from the light top down, so that once that light is not shining anymore, so therefore that person hasn't changed. So therefore, once Avraham is there, they can all be a follower of him. Once he's gone, well, they never changed, and therefore he's gone, and therefore they don't change, and they just go back to their ways. So that is going from the top down, that they don't change their essence. So in our matter, the way we see it, by Avraham has chortim shel Avraham ad el elam, that there's a hazkara that the Arabs have a recognition of God, and it wasn't from them. It doesn't come from them that they do it, because their essence didn't come from their essence that it's coming, but it's vayikriya, that Avraham caused them to name or recognize or to mention God. So everything's coming from Avraham. So Avraham is making them all do it, so that their pu'ula, that their actions are really go back be'etzim Avraham. It's not really them doing it. They're not doing any of this. So if you go to a from place and you put a black hat on or whatever, now you're so from, and you've done the mitzvah of putting a black hat on, that's not your mitzvah. It's because it's mityeches. And that act, if you're doing it because you're not doing it from yourself, you're doing it because everyone around you is doing it, so therefore everyone around you, really they're the one that's doing it. And if you go back to backwaters USA, so therefore you don't do it, and you're not wearing it anymore. So therefore when Avraham is doing it, it's from the top down. He's making them call out to God, and therefore they're calling, even though they're doing the act, really the act is coming from Avraham. And therefore we have that Avraham would bring through the Arabs, that they have a recognition of the greatness of God, because he didn't cause them to raise up the Arabs from their low place, that they would be so therefore that their essence, it just remains below, and therefore that the Arabs stay just where they are. But against this you have the avodas of Yitzchak. What's the avodas of Yitzchak? Is hala memata lamala, that you're raising up below above, and therefore that the connection between the below, which is the world, to Elokos, which is above, it flows out from the mata. So therefore the connection belongs to the person that's doing it. So when you dig the well and you release the water, that water is from the lower. That the water which you're drinking is coming from the lower. If there's a tap, or like you created that, if there's a tap, then as long whoever's providing water into the tap, when they stop with the water, therefore you've got no water left. So hu atzmo mishtane, he himself, he completely changed. That the desert has now become a well. There was water in the desert where there wasn't before. We could have it by Bob Geldof and Live Aid, where they raised lots of money for Africans, but they didn't help them with the farming, and they actually destroyed lots of farming because they dumped all this food and there was no market. So they just came in with a load of money and gave it to all these Africans, which is great in the moment, but then it caused so many problems for years later, because they didn't change who they were. It's just some white man came over and gave them lots of money, and then once he was gone, then what do they do now? So hu atzmo mishtana, he himself is completely changed. Mitrum, he is lifted up, and he has that connection to Elokos. So when it goes mamata lamala, therefore he himself, that's his own connection to God. And just like that, the digging of the wells that they don't bring and pour into the bor mayim chaim makar echar. So when you have you can have a well which you fill up from somewhere else, and then you just have like a bucket that's full of water somewhere. So it's coming from somewhere else. But no, the water itself is being generated from the well. That when you dig and then you bring up the mayim chaim, the water that's there, that is there in the ground and in the bor atzmo. So again, the water that's coming in is not coming from somewhere else. It's in itself, the atzmo, that the source of the water. It's not some other guy isn't just filling it up. So Zion 7. From the other side, Davka, because of this, there's a yitron, there's a benefit in the idea of Avraham, the avodas of Avraham, from coming down from the up down, because of the raising up of the lower than raising up the lower up. Because when you have the flow from above to below, and we're lighting, and then you're shining the light, and the light of God to the lower person where he is. Again, he gets the light even though he never moved. So he's in his low place. Just like Avraham, that he chadir hakeres begadlos Hashem esel Avraham begder shalehem. So he's bringing God like down to their level. He's shining God light onto the level of the Arabs of where they are. They don't have to raise themselves, which is not the case when you bring up from down above. That in that you create the kesher between the mata and Elokos. So when you do it the way of Yitzchak, that you create the connection yourself, but you don't have a connection if you're just getting it from above. So the Maila Ba'atzmos, that it is the It nasos min hashafos, the maila, it brings you up from the lowness in the place of the mata atzma eninu ma'or, because the place of the mata doesn't have any light. So when you're in the avodas of Avraham, there's light being given to the lower place. But in the avodas of Yitzchak, there is no light being given to the lower place. The way you find the light is by raising yourself up and doing the avoda and doing the work and cleaning it and doing the zichuch and doing the clarification of your life and of your midos and of your service and of your relationships. When you work on all this, then you'll find the light. But if you don't do the work, you don't find the light. But the way that Avraham has it, that he can shine a light, even though you didn't do any work, he can still have the light. And this is the reason of the separation between Avraham and Yitzchak in their avoda. Because Avraham, he came out of Eretz Yisrael and he went down to Mitzrayim. So Avraham himself went to Mitzrayim, to the Mitzrayim, and not into the world and the ways of Chutz La'aretz, and therefore he gave light also to Chutz La'aretz. Avraham is able to go to Chutz La'aretz, which is in a low place, and bring light there. But against this, Yitzchak, there's also for him to come out of Eretz Yisrael, because he was Oile Tamima. That he, during the Akedah, it was like he was shechted, and that he was an actual korban. And they said that he had his neck was cut, and he had to go to Gan Eden for 3 years for his to heal. And that's how he knew that Yaakov was smelling like Gan Eden, because he'd been there. But he's this oile, he's this korban, he's a perfect korban, and just like a korban can't come out of the Beis HaMikdash, so too Yitzchak couldn't come out of Israel. So why is this? Because his whole avoda and his whole being and work has to remain in the chilek of the world that is found in this high level in the Eretz Yisrael, and not in the lowness of Chutz La'aretz. Because if he goes to the lowness of Chutz La'aretz, he can't shine the light there. He has to bring up Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael. Because of his service, then he can't ein lechutz la'aretz shum kesher leor hakadusha. That chutz la'aretz, again, Avraham is shining into the low places, so therefore Avraham can go to chutz la'aretz because it's a low place. Yitzchak is not shining light into the low places; he's raising up the low places to the light. So therefore, since chutz la'aretz is not Eretz Yisrael, therefore it's not shaykh to come up, and therefore he can't shine a light there. So therefore, there's no point in him going to chutz la'aretz. He can't go to chutz la'aretz because his avoda doesn't work there, because he can't shine the light there. Therefore, there's no connection between him and the and Chutz La'aretz. So 8. And the Hevdel, this separation, this difference between the avodas of Avraham and Yitzchak, it is the reason of the separation between their Toldot. And we see this command, their avodah coming out, Yishmael and Esav. Because by the avodas of Avraham, that he is given influence top down, it comes out that also when his offspring, or what comes out of him, they are in the level of lower. That he's the Ben Amma. Even though Avraham can have a Ben Amma, and he can still shine light down there. That this is a slave servant. There's a connection through Avdus. It's not coming from the right connection, but it's through servitude. That there he can still shine the light. And even though it comes out, that Yishmael goes out and does evil. Even Gamaz, he can also reach him the influence of Avraham, and he can return him to Teshuvah. Since he's doing the lamata, he can bring Yishmael to Teshuvah, even though that he's a Rasha. So we skip the brackets here. This is idea of that. Even though he goes out to the evil, Avraham still doesn't lose that connection to him, and he's still with him. Kevin shekol zehu. It's coming out from Avraham, and mishtamish Avraham. Umishames Avraham Nefel, and once Avraham dies, there was the fall. Again, this is the pasuk talking about after Avraham died, what happened to Yishmael. So there was a fall. Hooray Yishmael lo hitala, because Yishmael never changed. Even though Avraham came down and he raised him, and he found Shuvah where he was, he can never go too far, and Avraham's able to bring him back into Shuvah. But once Avraham's gone, there's an afila, there's a fall. Hooray Yishmael lo, because Yishmael himself, he never raised himself up through this of his interactions with Avraham. That in his essence he was Yaitse v'nifrad mi Avraham. That in his essence he was always separate, even though he was doing things that were of a higher level in Chayzer B'Teshuvah, and everyone was happy with what Yishmael was doing when Avraham died. But Yishmael never changed. It was just a levisha. It was just something that he was doing. But he himself, who he is, never changed, and therefore he's not able to be a Yerush of Avraham. He's not able to have this inheritance of Avraham, this flow, specifically because of this hesper of that the yoresh is mitziusu shel hamayrish, because what is the inheritance? What is the flow? It's a flow in the essence of that person. So since Yishmael is separate from the essence of Avraham, therefore he can't inherit the essence of Avraham. Therefore, the flow and the essence of Avraham goes to Yitzchak, but not to Yishmael. But the avoda of Yitzchak is that mata atzma mitale, that the person himself raises up, and therefore is also by his Toldot. We also see this in the Toldot that Asher Mi'ad, once they were born Mimenu, they are already in the Geder of Yitzchak. So they're already once they're born, they're already Shayach and have that connection to Yitzchak. So again, the bracket here is just because that's why Yitzchak couldn't take an Amma, because there's no Shayachness to Yitzchak to an Amma, to a maidservant, because even though Avraham was able to have the hashpah to a son of a maidservant, just like Yitzchak can't go to Chutz La'aretz, he can't have a maidservant because he doesn't have the hashpah on those levels of children and the Toldosav, and also Gam Osav, he was Yisroel of Yer, so Esav, he was a Yisroel. Again, even though he's a Mumar, he may not have been doing the mitzvahs, he's a Yer, he still has that connection, but Ikar Aguf. But all this is only according to the Reisha. This is all in the Reisha of Esav. This is all how he is in his head. The Chelak HaElyon Shebo, his highest part, because he is Mitzad Shorsha, how he is in his root. But when it is the Reisha is connected to the Guf, that is to say that in the lower place, Mamish, then he's a Yotzev Nifrad from Yitzchak. So therefore, where the connection comes to the Reisha to the Guf and how he is Lamata, how he is actually B'Poel in this world below, so therefore he's separate and he comes out of Yitzchak in a manner that he doesn't have a kesher to the light, to the holy light, and he doesn't, so therefore he's not Choser but Teshuvah, and therefore it is worse, the Klipos of Esav, more than the Klipos of Yishmael. So these two ways in the avodas of Avraham and Yitzchak, they are the preparation for Yaakov, because he had two levels. It's from Avraham and also the ideas of Yitzchak, that he was able to be poil also in Chutz La'aretz, because he was able to lower himself to the place below, but there it wasn't just that he was giving light to the lower like Abraham, but he also raised up the Shavatim and Oifim of Mitas Shlema. So he goes into Chutz La'aretz and he raises up the Mahus, and that the actual essence of the Shavatim raised up in Chutz La'aretz. It wasn't just that he shone a light there. So Yaakov was combining the avoda of Avraham and Yitzchak, and because of this, he's able to have shevchus, he's able to have maidservants. Because of the, we said it's basically what we're saying. We understand also the big separation of Parshat Toldot. So what's going on? This big chunk of the parsha that's talking about the brachas, because also in this that we see the avodas of Yitzchak and how it connects to Esav. The Yitzchak wanted to bless Esav, even though he knows the essence of what Esav is, because he was tzayid bepiv. So tzayid bepiv is this idea that he is he's like trapping him. So what's this idea of trapping him? Is that the reisha to Esav mitzad shorsho u'makoro, so that the head of Esav, that's coming from the shore. So we kind of have you have Yitzchak going into the head of Esav, and then the head of Esav going into the guf of Esav. So we have kind of three levels there. So Yitzchak is trying to raise up the head of Esav, and Esav's guf is trying to bring down the head of Esav. So you have that battle, but where the head of Esav is, that's where the tzayid bepiv, where you have he's tricking him. So in the head of Esav, because of his makor and because of his essence, there you have the holy sparks, and they're very high, like the neshama of Onkelos and Rebbe Meir. So you have that in Esav, and they all came from Onkelos and Rebbe Meir came from Esav. So therefore, he's having those sparks and that kedusha, and because in the avodas of Yitzchak is to dig the bores and to raise up, because he held up before the parsha the chafira of Gilu Shamayim Chayim. So as we see early in the parsha that he's digging the wells, that they are in the depths of the land, and therefore Yitzchak wanted that through the medium of the brachas, giving them to Esav, that he will be digging in him and he will reveal in him the Ma'am Chaim. So just like before all the brachas, we have all these stories of Yitzchak digging the wells, that's all introduction to the brachas. Why is Yitzchak giving the brachas to Esav? Because he's digging the well, just like he was digging the well in the previous parak. So he's going to dig the well here. That's why giving the brachas, and he will reveal the Maim Chayim that's in Esav, that the Nitzusas Kedusha, the holy sparks that are in the Reisha of Esav, and according to Esav, nearly Yitzchak, and as Esav appeared to Yitzchak, he showed that he was fitting for this, because he was showing him the Tzad B'Peh, that he was showing him according to his Reisha. That's what he was showing Yitzchak. So therefore, according to Yitzchak, he appeared that he had these Nitzuzah Kedusha ready to be dug. But since it was Yetzimim anyway, so since Esav came out of him, and then he was nifred and separate, which is according to the Guf, Ein hu yichli lekabal brachos. He didn't have the vessel, he didn't have the kli in order to mekabel the brachos, and therefore the brachos were given to Yaakov, which dafka with him. Therefore, he has the bracha of to do birur the nitzusas kedushas of Esav. So that the kind of point of Esav, that, and you see this in Vayishlach, that Yaakov is trying to makabel. So Esav has the or without the kelim, and Yaakov has the kli without the or, and he wants to bring Esav into his kelim, and Esav kind of says, "I'm not ready yet to do this." But that's the story between the brothers there. So 10. Now, what comes out of all this for us is that if Esav the Rasha, that it was the vote before Matan Torah, and then he still could have the label of a Yisrael because he's the child of Yitzchak, without considering that he's even though he's a Momor, but he could still be called a Yisrael. And Yitzchak, who was trying to dig him and reveal him the what's in his panemius and reveal the Maim Chaim in him. Hold on, how much more so is for all the Jews after Matan Torah, that the koyach and the life that is in every Jew without considering where he is. So if you have Esav and he's taka this Rasha, and Esav is trying to come in, and he's a Yisrael Mumar, and Esav is trying to dig his bore and reveal the Maim Chaim in it. So therefore every Jew, and don't consider, who cares where he's standing. This is all after Matan Torah, and therefore the connection between every Jew has changed. So now every Jew, no matter what he's standing, you want to say he's a Rosh, you want to say that he doesn't keep Shabbos, it really doesn't matter. And specifically, that also in the Chitzonim, even in their outside, they are much higher, because they're the Jew, that they are not, even if they are not acting fittingly, they're still beyond the level of Esav. They don't go down to the level of Esav. You have a Jew who's not keeping mitzvahs. He's still on a higher level of Esav. And in addition to this, that it is b'minu rubam kakulam hem begeru tinuk shenishba, that the Jew, even if you have a Jew that is doing Averis, Chas v'chalila, erol tinuk shenishba, and it's really not shaykh, that he's not choosing the Avera to rile against God and to rebel against God, which is not like Esav, who had the tools and just rejected them. And therefore, for sure that you need to is tamer l'kerev kol Yisrael. You have to put the effort in to do kiruv and all Yisrael, also those that are even very far from being a Jew, or Yehudis, whatever, however you understand Judaism. And therefore you have to dig and to reveal the Maim Chaim that is in by every Jew. So 11, with this, then you have to fear for this, and the orphan of Kiruv will be that what the Mishnah says, that you love the Brias u'mekarv l'Torah, so you love the creations and bring them close to Torah. So again, mikravam l'Torah, you bring them close to Torah. You have to l'karav l'ramam es Brias, you have to raise up and bring them to the Torah, and not chas v'chalila to karev, to bring close the Torah to the Brias. I think this is an idea Rav Hirsch says at the time of Matan Torah, that Moshe Rabbeinu comes down and he sees all the Jews bowing to the Chet Egel. Why did Moses not just say, "Hey, we've got a Chet Egel here. Let's change the Torah. Here's the Torah in my hand. Let's put an 11th commandment in." Rather, he smashed the Torah to show that the Torah doesn't change. You can't, no matter what the people are doing, the Torah doesn't change. You can't bring the Torah down to the people. You have to bring the people up to the Torah. So when you have the kiruv, and you have these ideas, and you have, what is the Torah? Well, the Torah is just a way to have a nice vorsh. The Torah is just a way that I can enjoy myself. How can God impress me this morning? Give me a nice little vort in order that I can give over at my Shabbos table, that people will think I'm a good person, and people will give me their validation. So chas v'chalila, you're going to bring the Torah to the people, but you have to bring the people up. You have to raise them up. Then why are you trying to find? You need validation. So that's not what the Torah is for. The Torah, when you have the Torah, you don't need validation. Bring the people up to the Torah. So it's asur la'irech shom parshas the Torah uba mitzvahs, that if you look at Asher Choshvim so you can't change any of the Torah, the mitzvahs, even though you'll say through this, I will bring the Jews close to Torah mitzvahs. The Torah will stay forever and forever. It doesn't have any change, and it doesn't go bad, and there's no tosefet, and you can't change any of the parshas. So skip the brackets, and this eitzah will be to see, though, every Jew, just how he is in his Risha, even though you see him in his Rishas, and then you won't see the lowness in the Mavso and the Chitzoni, but you'll only see the Panimi of this person, the Atzmotzi, Hashem V'chinazu Hu Kosher, that he has his connection to God in his Panimi, and he wants to keep all the Torah's mitzvahs, all the Torah Kula. That's what he has, and that is his Panimi, and you have to find that Panimi, because he has the Mayim Chaim that's in him. Even if you see him that he's doing all these Averas, he's just the desert with the Mayim Chaim running under, and you have to go through all the stones and the offer and all the ground and uncover that Mayim Chaim. And once you do, it'll start flowing, and all he wants to do is to do all the Torah Kula. And because you looking at this, man will become, according to all his ability, to raise up and to bring close the Jew to Hashem and to his Torah and to his mitzvahs and to the Torah Tamima. Again, Torah Tamima, Davka, and not that you reduce the Torah in order to get some kiruv going, but that the Torah is Tamim, and therefore you just need to reveal in the person, and then he will come to the Torah. That's really the avoda of Yitzchak. And through the brachas, you can see that even though Yitzchak is trying to give the brachas to Esav, so therefore, and he's trying to bring him back and raise him up. So people have the question, why is Yitzchak trying to give the brachas to Esav? Well, because he's trying to bring him up. So therefore, no matter who you see, whatever Jew, there's no point judging him and telling him, oh, he's a bad person. But no, then your avoda is to, just like Yitzchak's giving the brachas to Esav, that you have to megala, you have to dig into this person, reveal his Mayim Chaim, and bring him back to Torah, no matter what he's doing, even if he's doing a various whatever it is, it doesn't really matter, that you bring and you dig him and you reveal his Mayim Chaim.